Hello, 8th grade. Today we are going to be doing kind of an Englishy lesson about how to write down inequalities in words and how to take words and write them as inequalities. So the first thing we need to do is make sure we know what an inequality is. And an inequality is a statement that compares quantities that are not equal. Quantities that are not equal. So obviously inequalities has this equal word there, and in means not. So not equal. We're talking about things that we can't use the equal sign for today and some other things we can use. So our possibilities here are going to be this, which is the greater than symbol. Right here is less than. This is going to be greater than or equal to, or equal. This is less or equal. And our last one is going to be the does not equal. And those are going to be kind of the 5 different signs we can use today that are not equalities. So all these things tell us something about our two numbers. That means they're not necessarily equal, but it's saying something different. So we're going to start by translating sentences that I'm going to write down and seeing how we can make them into inequalities. So the first one is going to be the quotient of a number and 2 is less than or equal to 6. So it's the quotient. Quotient has an O, not an A. Of a number and 2 is less than or equal to 6. So the first thing we want to look at is the very beginning of the sentence. It says the quotient. And anytime we see quotient, I want us to think division. So we see quotient, and that tells me that we are dividing. Then it says a number, and that means we have a variable. We don't know what it is. So we're going to write it as a letter, variable. All right, so we have the quotient of some variable and 2 is important, is going to be less than or equal to. We've seen less than or equal to. It is right there, and then 6. So let's run through all of that again. The quotient, meaning division of a number and 2. Meaning we're going to pick a variable. I don't really care what you use. You can pick your favorite letter. We can use W, we can use Q. I'm going to make my variable be a smiley face. So that is my variable, and we're going to do the quotient of that number. My variable is a smiley face, and 2. So we have smiley face divided by 2. And that needs to be less than or equal to 6. So less than or equal to is this sign right up here. So we have less than or equal to 6. And that's all you're going to do to write that. So we're going to move on and try a different one. And we're going to do the sum of the product of a number and 20. This is a run-on sentence, fair warning. The sum of the product of a number and 20 and 75 is at least 195. All right, so the sum is the first thing we see here. The sum's the first thing we see, so when we see sum, we should be automatically thinking addition. And then we see product. We're like, wait a second. Product means multiplication. So we got multiplication and division. And the product is of a number and 20. So let's make sure we have the product being of a number and 20. So those two are linked right here. It's the product of a number and 20. And then we have the sum of the product of the number and 20 and 75. So the first thing we need, number is going to mean variable. So first thing we need is a variable. I'm going to pick x. And we have the product of that number and 20. So the product means multiplication of a number and 20 means we're going to have 20x. Then we have the sum of that product, which is this, and 75. Sum means addition. We are adding 75 on there. So again, product of a number and 20 would be 20 times x, and the sum of that and 75 would be 20x plus 75. Then it says is at least. At least is not one of these things that we've looked at before up here. None of these say at least. So we should think about what does at least mean. At least means that it can be more than something, so more than works, so maybe greater than, but at least also means that equal to is okay. So greater than or equal to can also be at least. So when we're saying at least, we mean greater than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and it's at least 195. And that's all we have to do to write that. So now what we have to do is do this in reverse. So given a inequality, we have to be able to write a sentence. So we're going to try 6 is greater than x plus 8 right there. I already said it out loud, but a way we can write this would be 6 is greater than the sum. So we're adding, so it would be a sum. Addition means the sum of a number. A number is our variable, which is going to be x here, and 8. So 6, walking through this, 6 is greater than the sum of a number and 8. So I'd like to give you guys one of these to try. And what that is going to be is right here. Let me write this down. And I would love it if you guys could find the answer to that to me. Just write down how you would write that in words. Very cool. So other than that, I'm going to give you guys one more practice problem, which I would like you to do, which is going to be the quotient of an unknown number. So the quotient of a number and negative 2 is greater than negative 9. So the quotient of a number and negative 2 is greater than negative 9. Just put that algebraically, kind of like this one up here. Write it as close to that as you can, and we should be good to go. I know this is a pretty short lesson, so make sure you guys are prepared for class tomorrow.